So if you're ready to break the generational cycle of poverty, revolving prison doors, and a lack of education that's holding us all back, then now's the time to do something about it. So to move from gutter to greatness, it all begins with a change in mindset. Here's your host, Dr. Paul Miller.
Hey, what's up, everybody? We're here with an episode from the gutter to greatness. We're going to bring you some greatness today. We are going to be talking about a topic that we already dived into, but we're going to dive in deeper today because I got an expert here with us.
So if you're ready to break the generational cycle of poverty, revolving prison...
He's here with us. I got to excuse that music coming on still. We wanted to hear a little more Biggie up in the background because it used to rhyme. Rhymes used to be, it wasn't everybody's favorite, but then he became everybody's favorite. He turned ashy to classy. So my boy who was ashy, now he's classy. I don't think he was ever ashy. He's always been classy. I have Dr. Leonard Broc with us today, who is an expert in his field. Used to run a poverty initiative. So who better to talk about generational poverty than someone who has dived into it, has done the work, is trying to work to change communities and change lives. So I'm going to have this brother introduce himself to tell you all what he's done, who he is, and we'll get into his stories a little bit later. But just tell us, your background in poverty. Tell us who you are, what you've done, and why you do what you do, brother. Dr. Leonard Broc.
Appreciate you, brother. Well, yes, like you said, I've worked in this space for quite some time. So my name is Dr. Leonard Broc. I currently work in philanthropy. So my job is to work with community foundations across the country to support their strategy or economic mobility agendas within the various communities across the U.S. But prior to CF Leads, where I work right now, I was the founding executive director for the Rochester Monroe Anti-Poverty Initiative, and also was the founding director for Rock the Future, which is an education reform effort with economic mobility as a North Star. So I grew up in Rochester, New York, one of the most impoverished zip codes in the country. And for me, there's the lived experience, but there also was the anger from the lived experience that caused me to stay on this course over the last several years. I always say there's a hot anger and a cold anger. A hot anger, it dissipates. It's easily tempered, but a cold anger is methodical, it's calculated. It was that cold anger that kept me focused on poverty reduction. Having grown up in poverty myself, it was something I wanted to mitigate as an early youngster. So my entire career has been predicated on doing exactly that. I worked for a settlement house for a number of years. Like I said, I currently work in philanthropy. I worked on anti-poverty initiatives, and also, I taught at the collegiate level. I've done a lot of different things, brother. So,
okay. It's all. Now I gotta ask a question. So you helping organizations get some money, some money?
So, I do.
Okay, this is off topic, but I run a non-for-profit in Rochester, New York. Right now, it's called Charter Champions, and we're supporting over 25 charter schools to improve the educational pipeline, trying to improve it with educators of color. And so we do training, we do education, we do actually finding low luxury houses for educators. And we're working with developers to put housing in place for educators that is affordable but luxurious, because luxury and education are usually synonymous, right? So we're doing some things around that. We're also trying to celebrate education. We're trying to bring better benefits to the charter school world. There's a bunch of different things that we're doing. So I'm putting them on the spot, y'all. Can you help us find some money out there? And I know it comes with a cost, and but you should be paid for it. We get it. So can you help us find money? Tell me a little bit more about that.
I can help you navigate the national landscape. So I'm not 100% certain if I can help you get money, with the exception of supporting the local community foundation. So do you do any work with the Rochester Area Community Foundation by any chance?
We haven't yet, and I've tried to reach out to the brother there, but he's been hard to get a hold of.
Okay. So we should definitely have the conversation. I may be able to help you navigate the national landscape. Whether I can help you score some dollars, that's it just depends. Because I work vicariously through community foundations across the country. So the project that I'm working on right now is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates, but it's working with community foundations across the country who they themselves fund of various projects. So depending on the alignment between your organization and the Rochester Area Community Foundation, or your organization or one of the surrounding community foundations. I'm not sure if you do any work in Syracuse, Buffalo, the surrounding areas as well. Their community foundations are very much engaged in the work that I've done in the past. For example, the Buffalo Community Foundation, we just completed a webinar. I just actually conducted a webinar with the Buffalo Community Foundation this past week. And it also participated in the pilot project for the Bill and Melinda Gates funded project that I oversee. So there's a lot of things that we could piece together. But so let's definitely have a conversation. No promises, but let's definitely have a conveation. Figure out.
And we need promises around here. I don't want to hear all that. See, y'all. He led with, so he is not a politician, y'all. So but he led with no promise. I need some promises. I need a guarantee. I need some money around here, brother. Because guess what? We're trying to fight this generational poverty. Because we're trying to get more people educated. We're trying to put educators of color in here so that our kids become educated differently, and that they can make connections and relationships with the people who are in front of them. And so it's crucial, the work that we're doing. And so, I know there's no guarantees. I know you're going to help me, so I'm giving you a hard time.
No,
but
that's all good.
We need some promises around here, man. We need some continued funding so we can continue to pour into this community. And so, I'm gonna put you on the Gut of the Greatness audience spot, where you're gonna have to commit, where the people from the gut are gonna come after you if you can't get us some money, man. People want to see us win.
People got to understand I'm still from the gutter, so they don't want to do that.
All right, so let me hear about that. So do you have your own gutter? And I know a little bit of it because I was there for some of it, right? So, but do you have your own gutter story? What's your own Gut of the Greatness story, man? Like tell the people, like, really, like dig in, man. Forget all that educational jargon and all them big words that you like to use, man. We don't want to hear all that. We from the gutter, man. I want to hear what it was like, man, when the roaches was crawling on you when you were sleeping, and when your brother's butt was in your face because y'all only had one bed and there was 4 people sleeping in it, man. What's your Gut of the Greatness story? Talk to us.
Yeah, listen, I can speak to most of all of that right there, man. I grew up in Willie Warfield Projects, one of the project complexes in upstate Rochester, New York. And for me, I grew up with no aspirations of going to college. I never thought that I was even going to finish high school. So my gutter stories we could be here for hours, but I'll keep it simple. There's 3 different things I lift, and the only reason why I'm lifting it so I can be able to shed light on how to transition from point A to point B. I definitely was not from the neighborhood. I was of the neighborhood. So not only was I from the neighborhood, I was of the neighborhood. So I engaged in everything that you
What
can
does that mean?
think of.
What does that mean? Because some people might not know what that means.
I wasn't just a bystander. I was a person that was with everything that happened in the neighborhood. I was with it.
Smoke.
I was with the smoke. I was, subject to gun violence myself at one point. I was on the other end of that. Listen, I don't know how gutter we can get.
Hey, but go ahead. You can get it. We need gritty, because guess what? There's going to be somebody out there that will identify with it. And the fact is, so you're even though you were there and you were immersed in it, because me too. I got those stories too. And it's like you progressed. And so, I got questions here that I want to know why and how you progressed and the mindset shift, because I don't want to just glorify what the gutter is, but I know that there's going to be people out there listening and watching that will say, yo, this brother looks like me, he walks like me, he talks like me. I'm doing things that he's doing, and I can identify with him. I identify with the real. And then, we want to talk about the shift too. So tell me, give the real, like that gutter gritty tale, because that's what people need to hear. And I know it's not glorifying it, but statutes of limitations are gone. So you're good. Let's talk, man. Give me something.
Yeah, just growing up in the projects, man. Listen, you grow accustomed to a life and a lifestyle that you have to survive. And for me, like I said, I'm not just from the neighborhood, I'm of it. I was on both sides of the gun. I've sold drugs when I was younger. I was responsible for a lot of things I'm not proud of right now, but it led to who I am today. So I can't be too ashamed of the mistakes I made when I was a youth, when I was younger. I would say my mother did the best that she can. My father, he had a lot of kids. My father didn't necessarily grow up with my father. My father has a significant number of kids, like 18 kids. So I grew up in a single female headed household. My mom, I'm the youngest of
Papa was
three.
busy.
Yeah, he was very busy, man. I'm not sure how many baby mamas he had, but listen, he was busy, man. And I ain't want to, be subject to that, and I ain't want to be like that. So part of what led to my transition was wanting something different. Watching my mom struggle and wanting something different for her and wanting something different for my sisters, even though I was the youngest. I was the man in the household. So, I had to watch them be subject to domestic violence and abuse. And it made me angry. Those are things that just kind of stayed with me and it made me angry. So, me selling drugs was partly because I wanted to support the family. And I didn't spend, I don't want to glorify that, but I've done a lot of things, man, that really define the work I'm doing now in the character that I try to not refine, but the character I continue to work on today.
Right. So, so what do you think was that pivotal point in your life that you were moving out of that gutter mindset into greatness? Like when did it click, and what made it click? So how did
Yeah,
you move? How did you
I had, I
transition?
had a I had a relative. He was missing before Christmas of 2000. We didn't find him until January 2001, and he was in like 14 garbage bags in the back of his van. You know the story from Rochester. That was part of my inflection point when I said this. He was fly. He was somebody who was well respected, well regarded, well loved, and for him to be subject to that type of violence, I had to ask myself, if I continue to go down the path that I'm headed, what's down the road for me? So it made me think about things differently. I was in college, and the reason why I was even in college, and I stayed at college because I was the weed man when I was in college. I went to SUNY Brockport. First, I went to University of Buffalo. Got into a lot of trouble there. I did good, somewhat okay academically, but I transferred to SUNY Brockport. At SUNY Brockport, I have my son, who's now in North Carolina A&T, who's 21, going to be 22 years old in a few days now.
Congratulations.
Good looking, good looking. So my life when I was at Brockport was like a whirlwind. Even though I was in college, I was the weed man. I didn't take school as serious. I had a child. I was just trying to figure it all out. But when my cousin, my relative, when that happened to him, it really caused me to think differently. It just forced me to think about a different reality. So my mother, who has since transitioned. She transitioned August of 2019. At the time, she was pleading with me to say, listen, son, you got a lot of potential. God has great things in store for you. You need to change what you're doing because you're headed down the wrong path, and I don't see any favorable outcomes for you if you stay on this path. And my mom, I trusted her, I respected her. So when she was speaking that type of life into me, it caused me to, start making some changes at that point. It wasn't cold turkey. It didn't just happen overnight, but that started the process of change. And then one tragedy after another happened. There was an old statement that I heard some years ago that said there was two things that make a person change their life: tragedy and religion. I had a little bit of both going on at the time. I'm more of a spiritualist now, but back then I was very religious, and I was starting to get into the church as a way to change my life because I needed something different than what was going on. And I had all those tragedies. I had was one tragedy after another tragedy. There's a lot of deaths that took place. A lot of people I grew up with that are no longer living, and I just that led me to just starting to think differently about my future. And that's when I started to take school serious. And school was another hustle for me. School was a hustle.
Right. And it sounds like the tragedy and, like you said, tragedy and religion. I remember those experiences. It was interesting. There was a common path. Like I went to UB. I actually was trying to sell weed at UB too. Like I tried to do that as well. I was hurt and couldn't play football anymore. And I transferred. Luckily, I didn't never get caught or get in any trouble, but I transferred to Brockport. We have common paths. Then I got my degrees from Brockport and did okay, but I was still a little bit in the streets at the same time, and still trying to figure out what I was going to do or not do, and I had to, but the interesting part was like that, always that voice. So anytime I was doing something wrong, there would be God telling me, like I would hear the voices telling me like that's not what you're supposed to be doing, or something would happen to try to get my attention, or something big happened and it would be just too much and I would need to do something differently or do something more. And so but I started to listen, and as I started to listen to that voice and listen to God speaking to me more, I noticed that things started to open up and change. And so why do you think that there's so many young Black men specifically? And my audience is everybody. I love the ladies. I love the ladies, but I love everybody as well. But I really want, and I'm hoping that we can help influence and change and empower some young Black men, and to do something differently. But why do you think so many of our brothers are stuck? Why are they stuck in that mentality? What's your theory?
Conditioning, man. A lot of it is programming and conditioning. When you are told from the very early ages, 3 and 4, that you're not going to be this and you're not going to be that, or the systems that you have to navigate are not working in your favor, it's conditioning, it's preconditioning, and it's programming. So I'm not saying that there's no excuse, but there's cultural implications as well as structural implications for why Black men, Black boys find themselves in a situation that they find themselves. And it's very unfortunate. But when I was in college, had a Panamanian friend, and I remember her parents told her, like, the worst thing that you can do is to date a Black man.
Why is that?
And because of the stereotype. So when you're fed that type of negative thinking and you're being told these negative things, it's only a matter of time, especially if young impressionable mind, you'll start to believe it.